Have you ever felt dizzy and just instinctively thought, ugh, it's gotta be my neck? Well, you are definitely not alone. But what seems like a really simple connection is actually one of medicine's most fascinating and, pretty controversial puzzles. It's called cervicogenic dizziness. It's a condition that totally divides experts and often leaves patients just looking for answers. So let's try to unravel this thing. This right here is the question. It's something thousands of us ask our doctors every single year. You've got neck pain, you feel unsteady, and it just seems so obvious that the two have to be linked, right? But what sounds like a simple cause and effect is really just the opening shot in a pretty fierce medical debate. And this slide really gets to the core of the whole controversy. See, on one side, you've got physiotherapists. They're often diagnosing this and treating it. But on the other side, you have neurologists who are, let's say, frequently skeptical. Many of them question if it's even a real distinct disease. So the big question is, why? Why do two different fields of medicine look at the exact same symptoms so differently? To figure that out, we have to approach this whole thing like a medical investigation. And the very first clue, or actually the lack of a clue, is the central problem. There are simply no objective, definitive tests for cervicogenic dizziness. Yeah, what this means is there's no blood test, no special scan, no smoking gun that says, aha, this is it. A doctor can only land on this diagnosis by meticulously, carefully ruling out every other possible cause of dizziness first. It's just inherently tricky, and frankly, it's often a diagnosis of last resort. Okay, so if there's no direct test, how in the world do we investigate the next role in all of this? Well, we follow the clues. And by clues, I mean the main scientific theories that have been put out there over the years to try and explain how a problem in your neck could actually make your world feel like it's spinning. All right, our first lead is the oldest one. It dates all the way back to 1928. It was called the Barré-Liéou syndrome, and it proposed this really simple mechanical idea. It suggested that wear and tear changes in the neck irritate the nerves that wrap around the arteries, causing those arteries to constrict, which in turn reduces blood flow, and boom, you feel dizzy. But here's the twist. This case, it went cold. Decades and decades of research have pretty much failed to prove that this mechanism actually happens in people. And yet, as the source material points out, the idea just kind of hangs around in some fields, sort of like a medical ghost story. Now let's talk about the most popular theory, the one you're most likely to hear about. The idea here is that these little sensors in your upper neck joints and muscles, they're called proprioceptors, start sending faulty data up to your brain. This creates a sensory mismatch. Your neck is telling your brain one thing, but your eyes and your inner ear are telling it something completely different. It essentially confuses your brain's internal GPS. But, and this is a big but, here's the problem. While everyone agrees that these nerve pathways between the neck and the brain's balance centers are real, they absolutely exist. Experts like Yacovino and Hain have pointed out that they question if those connections are powerful enough to cause the significant dizziness or vertigo that people report. So yeah, the connection is there, but the link to major symptoms, it seems pretty weak. Our third lead is totally different. This isn't about faulty signals, it's more like a plumbing problem. It's called rotational vertebral artery syndrome, or RVAS, and it happens when just turning your head physically pinches one of the major arteries, temporarily cutting off blood flow to the parts of the brain that handle balance. Now, this is a fantastic point because RVAS is a real, confirmed cause of dizziness that comes from the neck. It's not a theory, but it's very rare. It usually only happens if someone already has an underlying issue, like one of their arteries is smaller than the other. So while your neck can cause dizziness this way, it just doesn't explain the huge number of cases we see. And now we get to what is probably the biggest twist in our entire investigation. The reason cervicogenic dizziness is so incredibly hard to pin down is because it has a whole lineup of lookalikes, other conditions that can show up with the exact same symptoms. Just look at this lineup of the usual suspects. You've got BPPV, which is caused by these tiny little crystals that get loose in your inner ear. Then there's vestibular neuritis, an inflammation of the balance nerve, often after you've had a virus. You've got Meniere's disease, an inner ear disorder with its classic triad of hearing-related symptoms. And then there's vestibular migraine. Each one has clues that help doctors tell them apart, but the overlap with just neck pain and dizziness is massive. So all this overlap leads us to this central puzzle that stumps even the best clinicians out there. It really is the ultimate chicken and egg problem. What came first, the neck pain or the dizziness? Okay, so here's the crucial point. Is your neck problem actually causing the dizziness? Or is dizziness from some other cause making you instinctively tense up your neck to try and stay stable? This is a real thing. It's called epiphenomenal neck pain. Your brain basically tries to protect you from feeling unsteady by stiffening your neck, which then creates its own pain and tension. It's a vicious cycle that makes it almost impossible to figure out which one started it all. So, faced with this really confusing puzzle, researchers Yacovino and Hain proposed this really compelling alternative theory, one that could potentially solve a huge number of these mystery cases. And it starts with a simple question. What if the main culprit isn't your neck at all? Now, what's really fascinating here is just how common neck pain is for people who have migraines. The source material points out it can actually be even more frequent than nausea. For a lot of people, neck pain isn't just a side issue, it's a core part of their whole migraine experience. And then when you put the symptoms side by side like this, the overlap is it's staggering. Dizziness, neck pain, things getting worse when you move your head. It is the exact profile of what we so often call cervicogenic dizziness. And this strongly suggests that what looks like a neck problem could very well just be a migraine in disguise. So this is really the core of their hypothesis. What if the neck pain and the dizziness aren't cause and effect? What if they are actually two separate symptoms of the exact same underlying condition, a migraine process happening in the brain? This could be the missing link that explains why two people can have the same neck arthritis, for example, but only one of them feels dizzy. So that's kind of where the debate was sitting back in 2013. Now, in the decade or so since, has this mystery been solved? Let's take a look at what we know now. Wow, this timeline actually shows some real progress. Back in 2013, the evidence for how to treat this was considered pretty poor. But today, while the diagnosis is still a huge challenge, the research supporting targeted physical therapy is much, much stronger. And we also have better, more objective ways to actually measure how well the neck's sensory motor system is working. So, a modern evidence-based approach really looks like a three-step process. Step 1, you have to rigorously rule out all those mimics, especially vestibular migraine. Step 2, you use specific tests to find measurable problems in neck control, things like balance and head-eye coordination. And step 3, you create a personalized treatment plan that combines manual therapy, very specific exercises, and vestibular rehab to basically retrain that brain-neck connection. So after all that, what have we learned? Well, the mystery isn't completely solved, but the evidence now suggests that for many, many people, what we call cervicogenic dizziness might not really be a neck problem at all. It might actually be a crucial clue pointing to an underlying condition like vestibular migraine. I think the key takeaway here is this. If you have neck pain and dizziness, it is absolutely essential to look beyond just the neck and consider all the possibilities. And that is how we'll finally solve this dizzying enigma.